This video will share most of my experience calling the entire hierarchy of the Abramelin over a few days, of course under the instruction of my holy guardian angel. The Abramelin kings include Lucifer, Satan, Leviathan, and Belial. The hierarchy goes further with 8 dukes, which include Astaroth, Asmodeus, Beelzebub, and others that I will share throughout the video. For my journey towards achieving knowledge and conversation with my holy guardian angel, you should see the previous video of the channel. I'll leave it at the end as a recommendation for you. This video right here is being made under direct guidance of my HGA, and we had long conversations over what can and cannot be shared. Unfortunately, some things have been prohibited of saying, but there are still profound teachings that I can sprinkle throughout the video, especially towards the end, where only the serious seekers will still be watching. This video was done in conjunction with my HGA, for the benefit of all, and with a few purposes. Just like a spiritual tradition can be transmitted to you via initiation with a particular teacher, or within a lodge, or whatever esoteric structure you prefer, it can also be transmitted by books. When we finish a book about magic, philosophy, or theology, we partake a bit of the spiritual power that it carries. Spiritual power that usually comes from a tradition, and by learning from multiple traditions, our view encompasses more and more, making us closer and closer to the all-encompassing, which is just another concept that describes God, the universe or multiverse. Yod-He Vav-He for the Kabbalists, Shiva for the Shaivite, Brahman to the Advaita Vedantam, the Tao for the Taoist. It accepts multiple names, and receiving such spiritual tradition can cause us profound transformation. So one of the purposes of this video is that it may carry spiritual power from multiple traditions to share with those that watch it to the end. May those of you who seek it eventually achieve knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel, and allow yourself to be guided by it. And may this video carry divine blessings that reverberate throughout all of our lives in a merciful way. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for further episodes of my magic journey, alongside other content surrounding magic and esotericism. If you wish to support the channel, the link for my Patreon is in the description. Patrons will have their name in our monthly ritual that over time will go over multiple areas of our lives, eventually all of them, one at a time. For a private consultation or ritual, of course, I only do it for beneficial and just goals, you can send me an email, which is also in the description. I'm profoundly thankful to all of those that helped me achieve my dream of living off magic. But it's now time to begin the story. After my HGA told me to do the ending of the Abramelin, I researched a bit and found the then Goof version, and of course began reading it. It comprises 4 books within it. First, it gives you the story of this man writing to his son of this powerful magical system he received after a long journey meeting multiple masters and evaluating many different magical traditions. Some he disapproves, some he saw as pure but were not very powerful, until eventually he met Abramelin the Mage, which taught him the system he used to transform his entire life and enjoy many powers, and now writes so that his son may also enjoy the same benefit as his inheritance. The book also shares a bit of the pious view he has over magic, that should only be used to the benefit of all. The philosophy being shared in the book is one where this magic is meant to be used to gain wisdom and for the benefit of your neighbor, not only yourself, which already shows some Christian inspiration on top of the Hebrew. Dr. Justin Sledge, who is much more capable than I am of analyzing the quality of Hebrew, argues that the level of knowledge of Hebrew shown in the text is very basic, which could indicate heavier Christian influence. The book also preps you for facing, commanding, and resisting all the demons in this system's hierarchy. This was to me already somewhat of a problem. As you might have seen in my old Goetia stories, I always respect the spirits I work with, and this went against what I had done so far. But although my first demon invocations came from a place of respect and appeasing them with offerings, and of course being truthful and honest with them, I had also been attacked and lied to by some of them, even if some others did provide me with great results. After one more of my usual long talks with my HGA, he affirmed that this was the most suited method for me, and that of course other paths are all valid, including demonolatry, but this was the safest and most effective way given my journey, my particularities. And he also did imply that binding the spirits to obey, to not attack, to not lie, is itself a powerful magical step. And indeed, most of ceremonial magic from most old grimoires use coercitive methods. Not only when dealing with demons, but in the Greek magical papyri, we see multiple rituals in which coercitive language is used even towards divine beings, gods and goddesses. This form of magic connects to an incredibly old tradition that has spread its roots and eventually got diluted in European grimoires such as the Abramelin, but also the Goetia, the Heptameron, and even the most heavily demonic such as the Grimorium Verum and the Clavis Inferni. Book 2 from this translation doesn't appear in the French manuscript that based Matter's translations of the Abramelin, and contains multiple folk magic/witchcraft procedures for various goals, being the useful things that the author allegedly learned and tested before meeting the Abramelin. Book 3, which is still Book 2 in Matter's version, details the procedure that he received from his greatest master and that he recommends his son to follow. Almost the entirety of the 18 months of the ritual described here are a series of purification practices, coupled with a strict regimen of prayers that should come from the heart of the magician towards God and his HGA. He should be a pure expression of his heart and soul. So sincere prayers where you talk and share with God and your HGA, until nearing the end of the ritual, he's supposed to show up and guide you towards the rest of the ritual, where you first call good angels for a few days and then proceed to call the infernal hierarchy, which is done over the course of 3 days. The first, you're supposed to call and bind the kings. The second, you call and bind the dukes. And you tell 4 of them to each give you a familiar spirit as a servant for a smaller task that won't require the higher-ups to get involved. And in the third, you call them all again, in particular combinations, and make them swear over signs you agree with them. If you want to do any of this, you really need to read the book. It contains much more instructions and minutiae about how to actually conduct things when you actually do it. Since it's a ritual for your entire lifetime, it also gives tips on how to deal with them over time. You're their lord, not their servant. But you also respect them and don't abuse them in any way, even if you think they're not delivering their promises. So you have to behave like a proper king, commanding and authoritative, but also kind and merciful, which is already a form of initiation into a harmonized equilibrium between Chesed, Gebvura, and Tiferet, for those who follow a Kabbalistic perspective. Also, similar to Kashmir Shaivism, the author talks about his experience with this art, but claims it is not to brag, for it is not him who does anything. Only God performs miracles. This resonated with Swami Lakshimanjo's teachings, where the enlightened individual does all things, but is never him who acts. For all is God, all that is God. So even what the enlightened one does, it's not him doing it, it's God doing it. This thought may also be connected to the Taoist idea of Wu Wei, a state of being intended and without resistance towards the flow of reality, accepting all that is and doing what needs to be done as a response to what happens, in a way that Wu Wei is often translated as non-action, and through non-action, nothing remains undone. I would argue that many Eastern spiritual traditions try to teach us much of what Western magic also does try to teach us, and the Abramelin is a profoundly powerful system of working towards this divine illumination, becoming enlightenment, which is akin to absolving the self, but also includes knowing how to act as an individual in the material world with presence of mind and spirit. When I finished reading the book, I was already on board to doing it with my HGA that still incentivized it, but I was afraid. I had only worked with Goetia spirits and had gone through some trouble already. These were so much more intense. Plus, you're supposed to do it all at the same time. And if something happened in the first day and I didn't want to go on, both my HGA and the book told me that you need to finish it. So I took a few weeks to process the whole thing alongside my HGA, and then one day he told me this is the right day to begin. I was afraid, but still trusting of him, so I organized my day to start it then. As usual, when working with demons, it brings up our unresolved issues and emotions to the front, forcing us to deal with them. This whole thing of facing my fear was already that happening. During the night, I decided to begin. I already had contact with Lucifer, so I had previously contacted him and asked if he would be friendly during the ritual and would cooperate, and if he thought that I should do it, and he also said that I should and that he would indeed be friendly. So the first day I began calling Lucifer. He promptly agreed to all the terms, which was a bit expected since he had told me that he would do so. Lucifer showed up as I usually see him, with a very modern and well-groomed suit in a very much human-like form. Later I called Leviathan. This one was much more resistant. He tried to scare me. He told me no, that he wouldn't dare accept such a deal, that he would never do it, and that if I tried to force him, he would screw with me, he would mess with all parts of my life that he could, that he would destroy me. He threatened to destroy me. Leviathan showed up as a giant serpent, but not as if it was made of organic material, but as if it was made of maybe metal, or at least used some sort of armor. He was ginormous, occupying most of my vision of the sky, and I could feel intense pressure when he arrived, which only made it harder for me to resist the threats he was making. But I looked at my HGA, and he told me that I should go on, that I shouldn't stop. So I reaffirmed what he was supposed to say, and he kept saying no, and threatening me. So I had to use coercive methods, and my HGA instructed me to see the light of the top of the universe, meaning the infinite energy of the One, and bringing it down on him. I did this for a while and also commanded him by certain divine names, and eventually he agreed. Later I called Satan. He told me I didn't know what I was messing with, and he kept on with the theme of threatening me. Once again, I had to use my HGA to constrain him, and under the influence of my HGA, him too agreed to the conditions I was laying out. Satan showed up in a pale gray skin, with the lower part of his body being similar to an animal with those knees that bend backwards. From the top up, he was very much like a human, but with this gray skin, and he had very pronounced horns. He was wearing no clothes at all, just the fur of the lower part of his body. The last one of the first day was Belial, which was the most resistant of the day, threatened to attack me and even my loved ones. Once again, I had to use divine names of power and a particular process that I had done before that I'm not allowed to share here. At the end, Belial also agreed. Belial, to me, showed up as a huge monstrous being, looking as if his skin was rotting and had some vermin in it. This day I also got what they told me were their specialties, especially Leviathan, Satan, and Belial. For Lucifer I had already contacted before. Leviathan was like a dragon without wings. It specializes in attack, protection, and also money and riches, but told me he has so many legions of spirits under him that he can help with anything. Satan specializes in manipulation and control of others, and of course, destruction. Belial works with attack, protection, finding treasures, occult knowledge, manipulating influential people, and bringing favors from friends and foes. During the first day, I had some times that I was scared. I had some times that I felt I might not be able to finish this, but I kept trusting my HGA and went on with it. At the end, I was feeling confident, and I already began receiving many intuitions, mostly about the spirits I had just worked with. So I received a bunch of details about their energy and how they behave and what else they can do. Many of those things that I would later find out in other sources about them. My mind felt very rushed, as if there was so much ideas that had to cram in it that it was running around all around. My mind was working extremely fast and it was already getting intense. I also received many intuitions and understandings surrounding sacred geometry, which was one of the topics I was studying at the time and learning how to practice it, and is still a part of spirituality that I deeply love. I've also had some other gnosis that is so much out there that even in this channel I don't feel that I should share. But a few entities beyond the hierarchy showed themselves to me. And it connected to older experiences I had within spirituality even before I began working magic. But it's time to go on to day 2, otherwise you're gonna think I'm crazy if you don't already. In the second day, I called again the 4 kings. They came and confirmed their oath once again. This time none of them resisted or tried to get out of it. Then I began working with the dukes. Astaroth showed up similar to the illustrations of him that I usually see on the internet. Big head, wings, serpent on his hands. He accepted the conditions promptly. He likes to work with secret knowledge, magical knowledge, divination, social positions, richness, treasuries, and much more. He is one of the smartest demons that I have found in my journey, and it's great for understanding situations and getting a better idea of how to do certain things. The next was Magoof, which showed up like a gargoyle, very small, tiny gargoyle with big wings. His entire body was made out of a black tar, and he did offer resistance, he did threaten me, but at the end also agreed to the oath. He told me he likes acting with attack, destruction, be it either physical or reputational. He likes to separate relationships, whatever type, professional or loving, and he teaches both empirical arts and necromancy. This felt like one of the most dense, chaotic, and destructive spirits of the entire hierarchy. Next was Asmodeus, that showed up like an enormous being with 3 heads, the middle being human, but with horns, then a ram at its left and a lion at its right. He also offered a lot of resistance. I had to use many of the coercive methods that I were using before, but eventually he agreed, and he acts with lust, sex, relationships, self-control, self-dominion, wars, and riches. Next up was Beelzebub, who showed up like an enormous and muscular man with the head of a bull. He agreed to the oath promptly, especially seeing the state of Asmodeus. He works with strengthening of the physical body and of one's will. He gives resilience, which is the capacity to get over situations. He also likes to rot things, institutions, people, relationships, cultures, and etc. He was once called Baal-zebub, the Lord of the Divine Planes, which was later demonized as the Lord of the Flies. One of the noses he gave me about himself was that after the demonization process, a lot of people began worshipping him through that facet. So, although he is the original deity, he also expresses itself as Baal-zebub, the Lord of the Flies, and also gains power from it, almost like it's a persona of him. He works with success, especially financial and artistic. Next was Oriens, Paimon, Ariton, and Amaimon. You may find Ariton as named Egin in other grimoires. Paimon can be named Paimonia, and this is not the same Paimon, that is the Spirit 9 of the Goetia. Those are actually the 4 cardinal kings, the rulers of each of the cardinal directions. Which later brings me to a much deeper understanding of the ceremonial tradition and how actually all the Western esoteric tradition is one, being diffused over time. Oriens showed up as a knight with black armor and a giant sword, and light shining out of his eyes. He offered resistance, even after seeing Asmodeus subjugated, claiming to be more capable, and still unsure of me. But he also couldn't resist the power of the HGA. He's an extremely versatile spirit in his action, specializes in diseases, causing and curing them, likes to teach magic and occult sciences, and also works with transmutation and transformation. But he said he can truly act in any aspects of magic. He can work all types of situations, similar to what Leviathan had told me. I was writing the entries for each of them, and for Paimon, the Spirit 9 of Goetia, who had before told me that he was the Paimon from the Abramelin system, only said that since we know each other, he didn't offer resistance and just agreed with the oath. He was quite astute and actually got me to finish the ritual thinking that everything had been done properly, even though he hadn't. But we'll get there, be patient. Ariton looked like a knight as well, this time with red armor. He offered resistance, but he was extremely polite about it. He told me he was only doing this because he had to know what I was capable of, or he only bends to very few, and he had to taste my power. So I showed it to him, with another strike of divine light, while vibrating divine names, and he quickly complied. He brings financial success, gifts from friends and foes, can control and manipulate situations, on top of magical attack and defense. He also acts on learning and love issues. Lastly, Amaimon arose in a gorgeous throne, wearing white and noble gowns that emanated luxury. He had long dark hair, and had a calm and extremely intelligent presence. He offered no resistance. He acts on developing calm, peace, memory, logical thinking, and cognitive capacities in general. Also works on self-love and self-knowledge, expands astral senses, brings treasures, and can take you on trips. It's also effective at war and construction of solid structures. During the second day, where we are supposed to choose or ask for 4 familiars, and that I had decided to skip this part, after doing the bindings and not asking for familiars, at some point, trying to use my phone, it froze. It glitched in a very weird way. I was very much involved in the energy of the rituals, so I was studying the entities I had began working with. And it suddenly froze. It glitched in a very weird way, and the screen opened itself on the Abramelin book and scrolled a little until it was in the page of the hierarchy. It also froze there so that I couldn't click out. So I began reading. It was strange enough for me to ignore it, and one name caught my eye: Iralix, a servant of Astaroth and Asmodai. Then Astaroth showed up and offered contact, affirming that he has a calm and peaceful personality, and that doing this draws more from the Abramelin tradition. So I agreed to meeting him. I saw a portal open up, and a humanoid being came from it, like a strong man with a head of a lion and a background of a stone, reminding me of Egyptian pharaohs. But all dark, as if he was made of dark matter, not tar like Magoof. This was more of a smooth and uniform black color. He told me that his name was actually Irilax, and that his, just as most of the other names of the servants in the grimoire, and also some magical squares, are corrupt due to failures in transmission, that I will later get to also. Irilax is perfectly versatile, being like a quartz crystal energetically that can deal with all forms of energy and work towards any goal. Of course, he is not as effective as other more specialized spirits, but I've enjoyed him for a while, and often use him to help people around me. I had abdicated from a servant, but Astaroth told me I didn't need to have four, one was enough to draw the tradition, so with agreement of my HGA, I also agreed to it. A ritual that was supposed to last for only 3 days ended up lasting 5, because in the second day, the spirit that showed up was Paimon, Paimon number 9 from the Goetia, which I had already worked with, and that had given me no results. But later, talking with Astaroth, after finishing the whole part, he said something that made me feel that maybe I had the wrong Paimon. And when I questioned him more directly, what Astaroth told me was that I should ask himself. So that's what I did. I called Paimon, that had just sworn his oath and therefore was prohibited of lying to me, and I asked, "Are you the true Paimon that I was meant to summon?" And he said no. He said that the true Paimon was the Cardinal King above him, that he was trying to do this in order for the actual king not to have to be under oath for me, since he had only lied before his oath when he showed up and pretended to be someone else. I forgave him, although I did some divine light summoning onto him, which can be seen as a coercive method. After that, I had another long talk with my HGA to adapt the last part of the ritual, and I had to add 2 more days at the end just for doing the process with the correct Paimon. The third day, it was similar. Now everybody was already on board. I called the kings, the dukes, and all the servants from the dukes, and the dukes can swear the oath for their servants. And there's a few points of notice that I'm not allowed to share regarding that last day and the 2 extras. But at the end, everything had gone well, and I would see many spirits around the house. I would see influences. I would hear some profound spiritual sounds. I was having all kinds of spiritual manifestations going on around me. 2 more ritual days, just for binding Paimon. Now the correct spirit. He showed up as an angel with a soft voice, but I sensed irony in its voice, and I asked him to show himself truly. He grew, becoming like an infernal warrior, trying to scare me, and he took his helmet off to reveal a skull behind it. But when he saw I was not scared by this performance, he further changed to a skull, now under a black cape instead of armor, just a skeleton, wearing many colorful rings. I explained him the conditions, and he questioned me why I thought that he would accept. I told him that by my knowledge of the divine oneness and the divine dynamics of the world, and per the authority of my HGA, and he eventually agreed without much resistance and proceeded to swear the oath. He specializes in divinatory work, understanding past, present, and future, general knowledge, protection, money, intuition, psychic powers, love, and lust. The Abramelin ritual brought me profound expansion of consciousness. The daimonic hierarchies are much clearer. Their nature is desolative, challenging, and contesting, but ultimately they also serve God. They have to obey divine command, for they too are made of God, since God is all that is. The last day went smooth, and at the end of the oath, I felt intense heat in what was a very cold day. The entire period of the ritual was intensely magical. And at the end, I also received a process of consecration for use of the magic squares that the book gives from my HGA. Conversation with Astaroth happened on the third day of the ritual. It was around then, a talk with Astaroth, that he told me I would have to go 1 week without performing magic, which is also something recommended in the book for an even longer period, so that the energy settled properly. He also told me that as a lifetime structure of magic, the Abramelin system grows in strength and power as your symbiosis with the HGA and the diamonds grow. Indeed, something that I have seen as true in the 11 months since that experience. It also led to a revelation of my HGA in a new form, one I unfortunately may not share with you here, but one that was terrifying to face. I saw the terrifying face and expression of the HGA, which, as a divine being, encompasses both light and darkness. It encompasses both opposites in perfect union, just as we should eventually in this path of divinizing ourselves. In Thelemic currents, it said that further down the path one achieves marriage or unification with your HGA. I have not experienced such, so I won't talk about it further, but you should know that that's the ultimate goal. Oneness with any divine form brings oneness with the Absolute, and that's the real goal of any serious magic tradition, just as it is to any serious religion. And that was that. After that, I have tried a bunch of different rituals. With this hierarchy, they have shown me the most impressive and quick results. The time I was able to manifest the biggest amount of money I ever did through magic was a conjoined work with Belial and Paimon, two spirits that are profoundly powerful when it comes to manifesting money. All the work I did with them ended up happening within the time frame they gave me during the ritual. Sometimes I would ask for signs that they were working, and I got small donations, and people reached out to me, and I just helped them with no second intention, but they still decided to give me money. And that was a few hours. I had asked Belial to give me a sign that he was gonna bring money into my life. And overall is at least tied with the other, which is also the highest, most powerful system that I have ever worked with, which is Enochian, as I had already spoken about in other videos. The power and the knowledge that can be accessed through the Abramelin tradition is enormous. And if you feel called to doing it, of course you need to already have your HGA. You should never try to do the thing that I described in this video without having your HGA and without consulting with him, a method for how you're going to do everything. But it is incredibly powerful. Well, thank you so much for watching this far. This is the fruit of years and years of research, study, and spiritual practices and experiences condensed in this video format for you, which is also a lot of work. So please leave a like, share with people that will benefit from this content, and support us on Patreon. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Now, for the secrets I've been allowed to share with the true seekers of the divine power, which can be achieved through multiple paths, including the ceremonial magic, which is the one I'm sharing in this channel. The Abramelin is a continuously unfolding ritual in my life. Although I've only done this process once, the results never ceased coming. Of course, thaumaturgical, and still being the reigning champ in manifesting big sums of money in my life, but most importantly, he provided me a much broader view of the entire Western grimoire tradition. I noticed that the Dukes of Abramelin encompass four less known entities whose names are Oriens, Ariton, Amaimon, and Paimon. Those are the cardinal kings you later find in the Goetia, each ruling 18 of the 72 spirits. You also find them in the Clavis Inferni, with their sigils. And you also find variations of this list in many, many other grimoires, being one of the unifying entities pointing towards all grimoire tradition having pieces of one more complete system, an all-encompassing infernal hierarchy acting throughout most of the European grimoires, including amongst the already cited Grimorium Verum, the Grand Grimoire, and many others. So to me, the Abramelin unified the infernal hierarchies throughout the whole history of Western infernal magic. This reverberates very much with my view of religion, which does the same thing. Each one contains parts of the truth, more or less clearly explained, more or less diluted, but all pointing towards the same infinite divine, that ultimately is the sole initiator into any mysteries for any beings throughout all time. It also connected me to the ancient thought present during the period of authorship of these grimoires from the 15th and 17th centuries, of reconstructing divine lost knowledge, ritual, and wisdom, which Agrippa, for example, very much leans on, and also John Dee, who received the Enochian system of magic through a series of angelic experiences. And those, of course, also draw heavily on Neoplatonist thought, theurgical ideals from Iamblichus, and much more. So all great magicians of all ages were interested in oneness with the divine, which expressed itself through unifying knowledge, fully grasping the reality of all within the multiplicity. Therefore, a magician should be able to unify into their philosophy the whole of existence, leaving nothing behind, accepting all that is for how it is. Your framework for processing reality should harmonize science, the knowledge of the material universe, and the spiritual truths found throughout philosophy, theology, and mysticism. And how blessed are those who live such mysteries. I wish you all may too encounter this bliss in your lives. It was also in the last days that the intensity of the downloads of information that the spirits were giving me got further and further intense, and once again my mind was rushing very intensely, and I began seeing so many things at the same time that the sensation of a holistic, whole, and full view of things of growing. Once again, I have to compare it to psychedelic experiences I've had in the past, where you're shown a deep interconnectedness between all things, and the knowledge of that interconnectedness arises a blissful state, an ecstasy within us, but not a normal, excited ecstasy. It's a serene and calm and completely peaceful ecstasy, while still being extremely intense as a feeling. It's one of the most profound experiences I've had with magic, and I truly wish that the divine power may rest upon us all. I'll try to describe this feeling a little better, but keep in mind, I'm trying to communicate an experience that the masses won't have a similar one in their memory, and language only works as far as the listener and the speaker both share a similar experience, or a feeling or a concept that they identify by the same word. Still, under psychedelics or in intense rituals, we can experience a rush of ideas extremely fast, all carrying an immense sense of awe towards the existence. Maybe you remember when you were a child or adolescent and began learning about sciences, maybe human anatomy, how each cell works, how they distribute energy, how it's a series of complex systems, fully integrated, and you can keep zooming in and in to get further and further details about the smaller parts of it. Maybe you felt that with architecture or engineering, with so many moving parts and so many things that could go wrong and contributing for it to work. Maybe it was with philosophy and social sciences. Any area of knowledge can give us that awe, that wonder for how intricately beautiful every part of manifestation is. So, that feeling of awe, couple it with a profound sense of peace and that everything is in its place, and not only that, but regardless of whatever you do throughout your entire life, everything will still be in its place. That's peaceful, right? So add those two. Now on top of them, those rushing thoughts about all sorts of mystical and mundane things. And at some point during those rushing thoughts, you realize how all of them so far have been actually connected. And now you're not only thinking about the ideas you're receiving, but how they all fit together, and you see that they complement each other perfectly. And that body of knowing you're experiencing keeps unfolding while you see how that unified knowledge spreads through all of existence. Maybe you get to see how every part of your life has led to this beautiful experience you're having, and everything seems worth it. It's pure ecstasy, without losing calmness and peacefulness, and mostly introduced by an extended state of consciousness, caused by the rushing teachings of all the entities I had evoked. This was the first time I've achieved such a profoundly expanded state of consciousness, accompanied with such intense bliss and ecstasy, completely sober, just me and the ritual processes that I was following, guided by my HGA. So indeed, as the book says, this truly is a system aimed at wisdom. Not that I've achieved perfect wisdom. I'm not perfect. I still have a lot of areas of my life to keep working and improving and evolving. And I'm glad I still have those, because that means I can keep experiencing multiplicity for a while longer. Another important thing to build this bird's eye view of the grimoire tradition is to know how spiritual traditions, either Eastern spirituality or Western magic, we often find the importance of a transmission from teacher to a student, especially in the old days where you couldn't find these books or read it on the internet. You needed initiation. Just like the Eleusinian mysteries, or any magical lodge or esoteric order. And those magicians transform things, they adapt, they improve, if they themselves have deep connection to the divine source, which we can see, for example, in the Goetia of Dr. Rudd, which did a great job from a poor grimoire, a bit unorganized and with many missing pieces, such as the Le Megaton. Or, if the student doesn't have that bond, doesn't have the true desire of connection with the divine, then he may adapt things in ways that dilute the power of that tradition. Which is why nowadays we need to read so much to even get to the conclusion that that's all one. And when we get to that point, we should expand even further this idea to include that it is not only the Western tradition. The Eastern tradition teaches us a lot of the same things. They're both the same thing. Magic is a method of religare, reuniting with God. So is every serious spiritual tradition and religion. Of course, nowadays most religions have been corrupted by ego and serve mostly as chains to guide the masses, but in their origins, there certainly were great masters who had true connection with the divine through the methods taught in their religions. And we can learn from all of them to build our own expanded view of the divine. To give further examples, the Torah in the more esoteric Jewish circles, according to Jacobus Swart in his book, The Book of the Divine Names, argues that in the Zohar, when they refer to the Torah, they refer not to the 5 physical books of Moses, but refer to the entire basis of creation, one that's ever present everywhere. Similar to what we see in Hinduism, where some traditions view the Vedas not as the books we can read, but as an infinite truth that can be tapped into by the yogi. In Tantra, it's believed that Lord Shiva himself, which is to them the name given to the absolute all-encompassing that is formless and eternal, and he himself gave transmissions to humans. God as the absolute initiator, as said before in this video. So, how did I get this insight that unified most of the grimoire tradition? Well, it was actually Astaroth that taught me. He showed me how each infernal grimoire used to give hierarchies of demons. I'll leave Abramelin's hierarchy on the screen while I point out the highest ranking from different grimoires. In the Grimorium Verum, we have the Infernal Trinity, Lucifer, Astaroth, and Beelzebub. This is shared by his, let's say, brother grimoires, such as the Grand Grimoire or the Book of Offices of Spirits. In the Goetia, they are all ruled by the 4 cardinal kings, Egin, Paimon, Amaimon, and Oriens. You find those, sometimes with different names in multiple different grimoires, as we can see in Jake Stratton Kent's book Pandemonium, where he proposes a similar idea of a unified infernal hierarchy across grimoires. Also, I haven't read the Book of Oberon, but I think it also shares the same trinity with Verum. So if you bound all of the Abramelin's hierarchy, basically all these grimoires open up to you. After all, you also got their legions binded to you, so you can safely explore any entities found in any of the aforementioned books. Many of those books I came to know as a result of this work. They've brought me all this knowledge to showcase their power and show how deeply influential these beings can be, and how much of the feared grimoires are actually under their ruling. Out of the dukes, those 4 cardinal kings are particularly influential and predominant throughout the Western mystical tradition, also connecting to much earlier sources. To be frank, the book Pandemonium by Jake Stratton Kent kinda came later as a confirmation of sorts of this whole gnosis I had after binding the hierarchies. It is still to this day one of the most powerful initiations I have ever been through, even without doing the whole Abramelin procedure as taught in the grimoire. Once again, may all divine bliss be upon us all. Leave a like and support me on Patreon. I hope you all have a beautiful life and can work towards improving yourselves to become more and more divine, until we can begin to divinize the world around us. For in us there will be an abundance of God. May all divine love and bliss be upon us.